What happens if, provided by Student Affairs, Community Standards, and Public Safety. Since Student Affairs is listed first, I will defer to both Dr. Moise Saint-Louis as well as Beth Ann Guthrie. If you would be so kind as to introduce yourselves and start things off, we are happy to connect with you today.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Maurice Saint-Louis. I'm an interim associate vice chancellor for student affairs and the director of the Frederick Douglass Unity House. What I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be introducing the leaders of the student affairs team by really going through my screen. Joanna.
Hello, everybody. My name is Johanna Volowski. I am the Director of Community Standards here at UMass Dartmouth.
Hi, I'm Nancy Hopper. I'm an LICSW and I'm one of the Associate Directors here at the Counseling Center.
Heidi.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Heidi Martinez and I'm the Chief of Police here at UMass Dartmouth.
Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Carter. I'm the Diversity Specialist at the Counseling Center and a Senior Associate there as well.
Ethan.
Hi, I'm Beth Ann Guthrie. I am the Director of Student Care and Advocacy.
Well, I really want to thank everyone for coming. One of the things we're going to do is really create a space for you to ask the questions that you need to ask and to really provide you with the answers based on, there's a lot of expertise in the room, a lot of leaders with years of experience. And so we hope by the end of the session, you will have all your questions answered and you can connect with folks personally afterwards to really ask more questions if you need to. We like to say in student affairs that if the student is not feeling okay, he or she cannot learn, right? And part of our job in student affairs is to make sure all students are in a safe, supported, inclusive, and engaged environment, and they have the opportunity to really grow. One of the things that's really, that we really want you to think about, that we think about a lot as a student affairs professional, is that these 4 or 5 years of college is one of the most, some of the most transformative years for students. This is the time where they will grow, they will learn, they'll make some mistakes. And our goal really is to really create the space that is supportive enough for them to really engage, to make some of these mistakes, to learn from them, to grow from them, to create a space where they'll be challenged. Their assumptions will be challenged, the way in which they function in the world, the way in which their reliance on other people to do for them will be challenged, so that by the time they graduate from UMass Dartmouth, they will be ready to engage in the world as fully mature, self-reliant young adults. Right? We have a dedicated group of professionals. And their goals, and with years of experience and education and training, who work day in and day out to provide that kind of infrastructure of support for students. And they do that by not just collaborating with each other, but also partnering with you to be able to support other students as the student come to join us in the community. We are particularly mindful that you have a role to play in really helping us provide the best services and support for your child. And one of the things we really want you to be thinking about is that there are stages of development that the students will be experiencing. There are patterns of stresses and pressures that they will be experiencing. And if we don't work together, we don't collaborate, we don't find ways to partner with each other, then we won't be able to help them navigate those areas of needs. And we have to do that delicately and sensibly, taking into account the laws that frames our interactions with each other and how much we can or cannot share with you. So some of the ways in which I want to start this for you to be thinking about is how do you, and I'm posing this here so you can really engage with us later, is how do you inform us when your child is experiencing some discomfort and struggling? How do you break away from the patterns that you've established of waking up and really hovering over your child and really having a level of structure that will no longer be available? So how can you really help us support in that way? And really, when is it appropriate for us to interface, when it's not appropriate for us to interface? Because at the end of the day, it's an investment to have your child come to our university. And it's a commitment from us to make sure that that investment produces the kind of outcome that you really seek for your child. And the way in which that happens is really by sharing information that are appropriate with us and by collaborating with us so we can really make some good, I would say, so we can intervene around specific time to be able to provide the kind of infrastructure, the kind of comprehensive support that your child will need to succeed. What we do here in Student Affairs is really comprehensive. The things that we take, we really take into account, and the things that we do revolves around whether it is housing, whether it is mental health, whether it is conduct, whether it is the safety of your child. We cover all of the areas that are outside of the classroom experience. And we provide a comprehensive set of programs and activities and support to be able to help your child navigate their 4 or 5 years experience they'll be with us. And so having said that, I'm going to step back and really ask my colleague Bethan to continue really to talk, and all of my colleagues in the room to really talk about the way in which their offices and their expertise interface and support your students on our campus.
Thank you, Moise. So again, my name is Beth Ann Guthrie, and I'm the Director of Student Care and Advocacy. So I'm going to speak a little bit today about what my department, Care and Advocacy, does. What is it and how it functions? So although I get the title of Director in Care and Advocacy, I want to assure you that all of my colleagues here, as well as my colleagues throughout student affairs and our partners in academic affairs, care for and advocate for your student. So while I have that title, everyone at the university, that is their role. However, the Department of Care and Advocacy was formed a few years ago when we saw a need for there to be a place for people to refer students if they found that the student was having a unique struggle or concern. So I receive referrals from mostly faculty and staff. However, I can also receive referrals from other students. Students can be self-referred to the program, and also at times I've received referrals from parents. And usually those referrals refer to the students having some academic or challenge or a challenge with personal wellness. So I wanted to give some examples of what might be the type of referral that I receive. So because many of my referrals come from faculty, often they will note that a student has had a change in their academic functioning. So there will have been a decline in their academic performance. Maybe they would have stopped coming to class or responding to them. Or they could have had some disturbed content in their writing or in a presentation that they made. In terms of personal wellness, they may have noted that the student is excessively tearful or emotional in disproportionate response to an event. They may self-disclose to their faculty member, and they often do, that they're encountering some difficulty. They may be having many different types of difficulties. Often our students present with a variety of challenges that they're going through, not just one. And those can include things like financial challenges, academic challenges, social challenges, challenges with relationships. They may also, have a marked change in their physical appearance that alerts a faculty member that they're struggling. So what happens is that if a faculty member or a staff member or anybody can make a referral to Care and Advocacy if they notice that there's a challenge or a concern with a student, and that will come to me, and I or one of two other people, one of them being Dr. St. Louis, or our director of the Center for Women, Gender, and Sexuality, will review that case and connect with the student to try to identify what their challenges are, and then work with the student to address those challenges. Often that includes connecting with different offices on campus, so referring the student out to different resources that we have available on campus. And sometimes it means connecting students with off-campus resources as well. So there's such a great variety in the referrals that I receive that it's difficult to say what the standard referral is. There is no standard referral. I have received referrals from faculty who found out that a student had a house fire and lost all of their possessions. And so we would work with the student to address that issue. They might need some emergency funding, and we would get them connected with that. It's a traumatic event, so they may also need to seek counseling, and we would get them connected with counseling. They may need a laptop because all of their possessions were destroyed in the fire, and so we would connect them with getting a loaner laptop through our CITS department. So that's a rather extreme example. But often, students will present with a mixture of academic and financial issues, and we would connect them with their faculty, with academic advising, with our academic resource centers on campus, and with the financial aid department, for example. So my department is just one way you can access help at the university for your student, should they be facing challenges or struggles in any area, and we will connect them with the help that they need or work with them to resolve those types of issues.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Hi, my name again is Heidi Martinez. I'm the Chief of Police, and I want to talk a little bit about my department. We are comprised of police officers, not security. We're on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The patrol officers patrol in cruisers, on foot, on bicycle, and we have positive interactions with our community members on a daily basis on campus. The type of training our officers require are to attend a municipal police training committee. Here in Massachusetts, after graduation, our officers are put through a field training program with another senior officer for an additional 3 months. Our graduation, our officers are put through again, different types of training, also in-service training that is mandated once a year. And we provide additional training such as implicit bias, de-escalation, and things of that nature for additional training. We're accredited, and the accreditation, what that means is that we comprise more than 279 policies that we have to be up to date with on a yearly basis, and we are checked on those policies. So that makes us a bit more transparent on what we need to do and the expectations on how we deliver that service. We offer many programs, such as self-defense programs for women. They're called RAD. It's Rape Aggression Defense. We have other programs that we partner up with our colleagues, our different departments like housing. We do safety talks, smoke detector talks. Actually, we just finished two videos where we collaborated with our students talking about propping doors, piggybacking or tailgating, right? Giving access to folks that they don't know, and covering smoke detectors, which can be dangerous. So things of this nature are programs and collaborations that we have with both the students, the faculty, and the staff to ensure the safety of everyone on campus. We do have the program, if you see something, say something. We talk about that a lot. Obviously, safety is a part of everyone. And we're definitely committed to service excellence here and providing good interactions, positive interactions. With that being said, we also have a committee where students, faculty, and staff are able to speak with our officers, with me as the chief, and bring up concerns so that we could discuss them and find a way on how to just find solutions for them together. And so those are some of the things that we are providing right now. We're working on more programs, and we are always open to hearing any suggestions. I'm open to any time coffee with the chief with anyone. So all you have to do is email me and we can make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Martinez.
Hello again. Again, I am Johanna Bolowski, and I am the Director of Community Standards. So community standards, what is that? I get that question a lot. Essentially, it's student conduct. It's what the university expects the behavior of our students to be. And we have a code of conduct that outlines these expectations. And it references other really important documents at our college. So things like the housing terms and conditions, as well as other university policies that are set out by our Board of Trustees. So it is really important for your students to review all of that information before coming to campus. We do our best to try and educate students on those policies as we go as well, but getting a first baseline knowledge of that information is really going to be key to their success. When does our office contact you is really important for you to know as well. If your student is under 21 and may have been involved and found responsible or agreed to be responsible for an alcohol or drug violation on our campus, you would get notification through mail for that. We also would give a call to an emergency contact if your student is unable to call you themselves. So for instance, if a student drank too much alcohol and was sent to the hospital, if they are unable to make that phone call home themselves, that's when someone from our office would make that call to you. So those are important things to note. If they are able to make the call, we're gonna try and get them to do that immediately as well. Let's see if. So transports on our campus, we do have a certain amount of students that go to the hospital. And, you know, we have 8,000 students that come to campus, and I apologize, I have a toddler here with me, so I'm sure you all can. So of course he wants to talk when I talk. So just all right, great. Some other things to notice is our student conduct sanctions. I apologize. Hold on.
I think this is so important, right? Because we just went through COVID, right? And one of the things that you're going to find, and that we really want to talk to you about today, is the fact that students, especially students who are commuters who are at home, will be facing these challenges, right? They're trying to study and their siblings are in the background, right? And they are expecting to do things and interact with that sibling. And they also have to focus on doing their work. And so we want you to kind of think about that in ways in which you can really help your child who's at home, in ways in which you can really help your child who's living on campus, right? Because that is part of we are living and acting, and life is happening all around us, and we need a collaborative approach to making that work.
Yes, thank you, Maurice. Shelley.
Sorry to interrupt, but as moderator for today, I do turn my camera on just to pose questions as they come up from our family members. So we do have one question. What kind of de-escalation training do the campus police take? What kind of bias training is provided?
Thank you for that question. So last year, we did bring in Dr. Destiny Peary. She is a colleague and an expert in implicit bias, unconscious bias training. I know her from my previous job at Northwestern University, and she came in and gave a full talk to all of our officers. So there's a method, right? It's not a one and done. That was the beginning of the training. We're going to move on to anti-racism, to prejudice, to racism. And so this is going to be a continuous training. It will not be a one and done. And as far as de-escalation, we also brought in and I'm sorry, I forgot his name. He's a retired chief who consults and does these types of training for police, but it's de-escalation for all types of crises that we might see on campus, whether it's a mental health issue crisis that's happening, how to identify it, right? What are the differences when we walk into a scene that someone needs assistance versus that a crime is being committed? And so these are very important things that us as law enforcement need to learn and be trained upon. And again, it's not going to be a one and done. We're going to do this on a continuous annual basis. So thank you for your questions. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chief. I also want to apologize. It's been pointed out that we would like to hold on the questions until all presentations have been made. So when we're at that time, I will be looking at all questions that are posted in the Q&A and making sure that all of them get asked. Thank you.
All right, so let's see if we can get through this here. All right, so as talking about student conduct sanctions, things that you should know is that your student may have, through the student conduct community standards process, may be issued sanctions that could be on the disciplinary level or educational level. So those are things that they've either agreed upon or that have been imposed upon them according to our processes. So all our processes are laid out step by step in our code of conduct. so that you, it's on our public website, so that you or your student or whomever wants to see that information is able to do so. We do have mandatory minimum sanctions for alcohol and drug violations, and those are listed as well on our website. One important thing to notice, oh, Heidi, are you okay? Okay. Is our medical amnesty policy. That's the next part. We really want students to be able to call for help for their friends if they believe that they need it. So if, you know, myself and my friend are at a party and my friend drank too much alcohol and really needs help, but other people are afraid to call because they don't want to get in trouble. That's what the medical amnesty policy is for. And it's to allow students to be able to call and get help for their friends. So call the resident assistants, the professional on duty, UMass police, to get that help that student might need, even if it's just as an evaluation and they don't necessarily need to go to the hospital or something like that. And if a student calls to get help, we have pledged to not have the student would not have any disciplinary sanctions that would come from that sort of situation. Now, there might be educational sanctions because we believe that is really important to educate our students on being safe and healthy in our community. And so those things might be addressed in a meeting. So the student might still have a meeting if they called to get help for their friends, but disciplinary sanctions would be left out of any sort of agreement coming out of that type of case. And the last point that I wanted to talk about is FERPA, so the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Now, you might know this as your ability to know what your students' information, educational records look like in the past. But when they turn 18, that right is transferred over to the student. So therefore, if you want to know something about, say, a student conduct case or some of my other colleagues' information on your student, you would have to talk with your student about getting a form signed, giving you permission to be able to get that information from us. And so, you know, I can always talk, me personally, I always try to talk in generalities about a situation so that I can give you some information, but any specifics about a student case, again, you'd have to fill out that form and file it with Student Affairs. And we can provide that at any point to your student to be able to do that. So the next point is when and who should you contact if you're worried about your student's mental health. So I'm going to pass that along to Nancy Harper and Erin Carter for the next section.
Okay, I can start off a little bit, go off of what Johanna said about FERPA. You know, we can't, in our counseling center, we are strictly confidential. No one in the university or other students will know your student is coming to see us, unless there's, like, occasionally Johanna will require a student to come in, like, for a visit or so if there's some concerns. And again, like, all we would tell Johanna, well, first we'd have to have written agreement or release of information so we could tell her, yes, so Susie came to the counseling center for one visit, but we would never give her any details or specifics of that. And the same, like, with parents, you know, I know there's a lot of anxieties and stress sending your child off to college, stress for them and anxiety, as well as whatever mental health conditions they may be bringing or having in their lives currently or while they're here, numerous things. And we encourage you to encourage your child to access our services sooner rather than later. It's always best to be preventive rather than waiting for a crisis to occur. And Erin will talk more about, you know, the types of appointments we have and everything. And so I highly encourage you to let your student know how they can locate us, and they'll learn about this more as orientation continues and what we can provide for them. They do have to make the appointment themselves, though. You can encourage them, and sometimes they might not be ready or they might have other concerns. They can always give us a call and talk to our secretaries or talk to one of the therapists about what they may be looking for. We have an extensive website that gives tons of information, and it has bios on all the therapists. But I would just encourage our student to contact us to set up an appointment. And again, like Johanna was saying, with FERPA, you could sign a release, but we wouldn't be giving you any, or they could sign the release actually, but we wouldn't be giving you any specifics about what they're talking about or anything. But if there's, you know, if they had a mental health crisis, if they had been hospitalized or something, and, you know, we need to communicate with you, or they, you know, they want us to, then that would be, you know, a decision that they would have to make. But again, we can't on a regular basis without that guideline and a signed form. We're never going to even be able to confirm or deny that your student is even coming to the counseling center. And that's the same for parents or anyone at all, really. Again, sometimes we may need to speak with a general practitioner or a psychiatrist, but that would all be, you know, through written permission as well. And, you know, I'll let Erin talk to in a minute, but one thing we really want you to know is that if your child is taking any psychiatric medication, to please make sure that they have enough refills for the semester, because at the moment, we do not have a prescriber in-house here. So they would have to, the easiest thing to do is to get the prescription from whoever they're currently seeing. And there's usually at least one day off a month in the fall semester that, you know, if they need to go home to see if they have a current therapist at home, that they'll be able to do that or see their psychiatrist. And there's a pharmacy, there's several pharmacies right down the street, or a lot of people have mail order. I don't know the specifics on that on campus about that, but you know, that's something to keep in mind as well. And I'll let Erin talk a little bit more about our services here.
Hello, everyone. I will piggyback a little bit about what Nancy said over at the counseling center. So at the counseling center, there are 6 full-time therapists. One is a director, so that person does not have a full caseload. So you can imagine with the volume of students at UMass Dartmouth and having 5 full-time counselors and some trainees, we are unable to do certain things and able to do some at the same time. So I want to talk a little bit about that so you know what the counseling center can provide your student coming into school. So if your student is someone who may benefit from counseling, it is best to begin that process early on in the semester. The student, as Nancy said, would need to call the counseling center themselves and let us know what they think we may be of help to them for. Because of our want to service as many students in the counseling center as we can, we are unable to duplicate what can be done in the community. So we do encourage for some of the students who are engaged in an active therapy right now, who have someone that they're working with, either a prescriber and a therapist, if they have a good relationship, that it would be great for them to continue with them. And you know, if we need to get involved, we can get a release at the time it's appropriate to support the student in addition here on campus, but really encourage the student to stay with the providers that they have. We are unable to see students every single week so that we're able to see as many students as possible. So we do see students about every other week, and we evaluate if the frequency or the need is great. If there are issues that are beyond what the university can do on campus, we would discuss with the student a higher level of care, maybe a provider that can see them once or twice a week, as well as a prescriber if it's appropriate at that time. We will obviously stay in contact and support the student while they're in the school, but we'll assess what the needs are. And we work in collaboration with the rest of student affairs and faculty throughout the university as students are referred to us either by calling themselves or a faculty member, as I believe Beth Ann mentioned before, that may have some concerns about the student based on what they may be seeing in class. The counseling center doesn't just do individual work. We also work with students throughout the university, collaborating with other departments. So you may see counselors in different organizations throughout student affairs or at events where it's appropriate, just to kind of get our faces known so that people are aware of us outside of the counseling center. The counseling center offers group work. So there is individual work that is done with students, and we also do group work with students as well. So there are mindfulness groups, there are art therapy groups, there may be exercise and walking groups. So there are different ways to service your students in small groups that happen throughout the course of the weeks and through the semesters that may change. And so I would encourage all of you, if you haven't had a chance, to go on to the UMass Dartmouth Counseling Center website as well. And that gives, as Nancy mentioned, a history of all of us in the counseling center, but also some of the groups that we've either had in the past and groups that we will be looking at hosting in the future. I think it's really important to know how the university really takes mental health and making sure that the students' mental health is taken care of, you know, really importantly. And so we're here. I know there's lots, so you may have lots of questions about, you know, more specific services that we may have. So one of the things I'm going to offer is
Erin, you are muted. It just happened suddenly. We've been listening right along.
okay. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
That's okay.
Thank you. I don't know how that happened. I'm going to put my email into the chat, and Nancy also put the phone number for the counseling center, 508-999-8648. What I'd like to do to not take time from the rest of the departments, I'm going to put my email in and encourage, if you have questions about mental health, your student coming back to school, how we're meeting the needs of first generation students, students, anxiety about coming to school, being on campus, being amongst new peers and transitioning, to ask those questions, send me an email. And we do have a UMass Dartmouth Instagram page, and I would be happy to go on and answer all of your questions on our page, and hopefully we'll be able to do as much as we can to help you prepare your student to start their new life as a UMass Dartmouth student. So thank you. And if I missed anything, Nancy, please feel free to jump in.
Oh, do you want to talk a little bit about urgent care hours?
Yes, thank you, Nancy. So, the other really important piece, and I'm sorry I forgot that, is urgent care. So urgent care is similar to crisis management, where we are open from 1 to 4 every day, Monday through Friday. And that's really for walk-in hours. So students who are actively experiencing a crisis, or they're struggling and they really know they need to speak to someone right away, there will be someone available, assigned to be in the counseling center during those hours. So students are able to drop in without an appointment and just come in and seek out support from a counselor, and then we can talk to them from there about how we can support them moving forward after that appointment. So that is available. And also adding to that is the counseling center also is not open on weekends or evenings, but we do have an on-call service that is 24 hours a day during the weekends, and starts in the evenings until someone comes back. And they're always available and accessible for students to call, leave messages, and there is someone on call each night. So if there's anything urgent, the students will be attended to. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and put my name in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Erin. And I want to talk a little bit about the Frederick Douglass Unity House. This is the intercultural center on our campus. And really, it is the place where the students call home away from home. Right? The Unity House provide comprehensive support for our student populations. More than 50 programs and activities are provided for students to learn and grow. More than 15 student organizations are part of the and engaged in the Unity House. And the thing that's really important for you to know is our campus is very diverse. Over 40% of our student populations are multicultural and multi-ethnic and multiracial students. And so that provides the campus with a really dynamic, diverse, multicultural and integrated environment, the kind of environment that you find in the workplace and the kind of environment students need to be used to be engaged in so they can be successful professionally once they leave the campus. And so the college itself and the dynamics of the college provide an environment for that kind of immersion and learning and growth. And the Unity House leads sort of that part of charge, both by providing support for students, for all students, and with a particular lens to provide support for a diverse student population. At any point, more than 10 languages can be heard spoken in the place. This is a destination place for a lot of our students. This is the place where they come, they study, they read, they hang out with their friends, they organize programs. And so that is to say, right, the work that we do for all of our students enables them to prepare themselves for a world and a work environment that is diverse, that will require for them to be nimble, to be able to interact and engage with all people, and to be able to function with all people. And so I want you to think about that and how you encourage your students to be involved and to be engaged and to not miss out in that kind of dynamic multicultural environment that we provide. And so we want to open for questions and comments. And so Shelley, if you lead the way, we'd appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to help, certainly. So I think Chief Martinez has already seen this question, but shall I read it for the group, Heidi? All right.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the question is, can you share typical on-campus issues? Also, do you provide student safety classes?
Well, it was difficult this past year, right? With the pandemic happening, we didn't have a lot of students on campus. However, a typical issue, is it like a crime that you're asking, or what are typical things that our students or issues that they have?
The question was for you specifically, Chief. So I think they're talking about typical public safety issues that I guess during a shift or during a typical 24-hour period, some typical things that might come up.
Okay.
For officers?
I'm sorry?
Oh, for officers, like things they may
Gotcha.
have to help with or confront or assist with?
Sure. So one of the things I will say that we've been battling are prop doors to our residence halls. That is a concern for many reasons, right? It's one of the reasons why the Clery Act was brought into effect. And so how we're going about the education and training to our students on that aspect was, one, that public service announcement that we just did, but also collaborating with our housing department folks, like our resident directors, to do safety talks, to conduct safety talks at different dorms with the students on what the issues are, why it's important not to do it, share some stories that have occurred so that they can get a better understanding that this is not just being nitpicky about things, but it is a safety issue and concern for everyone. As far as, yes.
Heidi, I just wanted to give a little bit of background in case it's helpful. When we're talking about propping doors, often students will take a rock or a book or something and just leave that door open so that anyone coming from the outside can get into what is normally a locked door. All of our students will have their UMass Pass ID that they scan, and that lets them into the door securely. Another term I think that Chief Martinez used earlier was tailgating. And it may not be the same tailgating you're thinking of, folks. This is not as fun and not okay on our campus. What this tailgating means is if I'm going into Balsam Hall and I use my ID and I open up the door, then Heidi comes up behind me and catches the door and comes in, which if Heidi is a resident, I know she lives in my building, that's fine. But if Heidi is someone I've never seen before and I get that weird gut feeling, I'm going to call the campus safety number and report that because I know that it's part of my job as a part of this community to keep things safe. You could certainly add to that, Chief, but I just wanted to sort of define those two things for our group.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. So that's a typical incident that occurred. Thefts are like an opportunity crime. So that's another thing that is quite common. If the students leave things unattended or behind, maybe in the library or outside on the table, things will disappear. So that's also a common theme on campuses across the country. One from the parents I'll share is parents calling in and saying, I haven't heard from my child, or they haven't answered the phone. And you know what? This is important that we talk about because we want to let you know what's going to happen. So if your son, daughter, your children haven't called you or answered the phone, most of the time parents call the police station, okay? One of the things that you're going to expect from my dispatchers are questions like, does your child suffer from mental health issues? Is your child on medication? Has your child talked or attempted suicide? And so please do not be alarmed with those questions. You will get all these questions. And the reason behind that is because we need to decipher what type of response that means. You know, are we going to send a housing person just to go knock on, a student's door and leave a note saying, hey, your parents haven't heard from you, please give them a call, or there's a little bit more to it. And if that's the case, then you're going to get a full uniformed police officer knocking at your child's door to try and find out, is the well-being of this person in danger? And so these are the things that we need to decide when these types of phone calls come in. So please do not be alarmed when my dispatchers start asking all of these types of questions, because that changes what the call is like.
We have a few more questions.
Oh, and can I just address, someone asked about the blue lights?
Yeah, that
on
was the next
campus?
question. Yes, please.
Yes, so we do have the blue lights. They're strategically placed around campus. And as soon as someone presses the button, they go directly into dispatch. We know where that blue light is, so they're all labeled, and a police officer will respond, even if there's no answer, just to ensure that, no one is in need of assistance and can't speak.
Okay, shall I go to the next question? All right. There was that mention of safety classes. There's a follow-up. Are there assaults and other issues, drinking, self-defense classes? So
we do have RAD, rape aggression defense, but it is for women only right now. Statistics show that there's a bigger need for women. However, there is for men as well. We'll start looking into it. As far as alcohol, we can and we will continue to collaborate with other departments for alcohol awareness talks. So what does that mean? Tips. I mean, we're not going to ignore the fact that students are going to drink. So we talk to them about safeties, right? If you're out at a party, or, about leaving your drink open, staying with friends, ensuring that you tell your friends where you are, do not separate from one another. And so these are some of the tips and collaborations that we have with the department, aside from just don't do it, right? These are the fines. This is what could happen. These are the laws surrounding alcohol awareness. And so these talks, we are proactive with our colleagues in giving this training ahead of time. We also do have an amnesty. And I think actually, Johanna, do you mind talking about that more?
Yeah, sure. I was going to add, we are not a dry campus. So if students are of age to consume alcohol, they are certainly able to do so, but we have, expectations for those students as well. And so, if your student is obviously underage coming in as a first year student, not all the time, but most of the time. So, we do have staff within the residence halls that monitor that type of thing. So housing and residential education can talk a little bit more about what their program looks like. We have RAs that are on duty in each building every night. We have a professional on duty, as well as UMass police that are there to help address situations when they come through. And then the reports come to me. So those are things that we're able to help address those types of situations. It is the legal drinking age is 21, yes. We also go by all state and federal laws. So things like marijuana might be legal in the state of Massachusetts, but we still go by federal laws on things like that. So students would not be able to have that on our campus, whether to use or to keep on their person. So those are things to be aware of as well. And as far as medical amnesty policy, that I did mention it before, but it is something that we use to encourage our students to get help for their friend if they believe that they need help in any type of situation. And that way they are relinquished of any disciplinary sanction, while there might be still something educational that comes along with that.
I think we've covered all of the questions that I've seen in the Q&A and or the chat. We do have panelists arriving for the next presentation, which will be in 7 minutes. So that's why you may see your screen changing, but we are still continuing with the what happens if session. So I will continue to monitor the Q&A and chat. I'm not sure if there are any words of closure that any of you would like to make, or anything you want to highlight, or that you'd like me to post in the chat.
Well, one of the things we really wanted to close with is how can you help us help your students? And what kind of conversations you can start before they get to campus of things that you might want to think about, and you might also help them think about and prepare to engage us on the campus with. So I'm going to turn it over to Bethan to really talk through that a little bit with us.
So thank you, Mo. So again, these are, discussions that we're hoping that you have with your student before they even arrive on campus, and continue to have with them once they are here, because they'll be helpful for the students' academic and personal success here at the university. So the first is to encourage them to attend class regularly. This is, for obvious reasons, and to develop proficient study skills. And there are many academic support services around campus that can assist your student with that. Also, to put in enough hours studying, and this may be something that is very different from what the student is accustomed to doing in high school. So for each 1 credit hour, the student should assume that they have 3 hours that they need to study. Most courses are 3 credits each. So that would mean for the 3 hours that they spend in the classroom on that class that week, they should be studying at 9 additional hours outside the classroom. It's important that they establish relationships with their faculty as well as with their academic advisor who will have been assigned to them. Faculty all have office hours weekly. It's required of them. And these office hours should be put into their syllabus for each class. So they should know when they can connect with their faculty in class, outside of class rather. If they're a residential student, we really encourage them to establish relationships with their resident assistant, that's their RA, and their RD. To establish goals for themselves. So of course, when we think about establishing goals, the first thing that comes to mind is career goals. And we encourage students to get connected with the Career Center early, not wait until their senior year. But they might also include goals like, do I want to do an internship? Or do I want to do undergraduate research? Or do I want to study abroad? So all of those things are things to be considering even as they first enter the university. I know that we've talked a lot about this already, but ask for help and encourage them to ask for help, not only to ask for help, to normalize help seeking, but to ask for help early. And I think Nancy talked about that earlier in reference to the counseling center, but it also means seeking out help early if they're having an academic difficulty, that they want to get connected with their faculty or an academic support center early for tutoring. We want your student to seek counseling if they lack motivation or purpose. So that's another way that they can seek help. We want them to get involved. And our university has over 170 clubs and organizations for students to get involved in. And if they don't like any of them, they can start their own. So there is a lot of opportunity for involvement. There's also student government, and there's opportunity for service through the Wood U Center on campus. Our campus, for those of you who don't know, is ranked highly nationally for our student service and the number of hours our students put into community service. Also speak with them about managing their freedom and taking responsibility for their actions. So this includes managing their time, managing their choices, and managing their relationships. And finally, encourage them to challenge themselves, to step out of their comfort zones, and maybe not always look for the class that's an easy A elective, but to really seek out a class that would stretch them, expose them to new material, ideas, or ways of learning. Because it is, about challenging yourself. This is what part of coming to a university should be about, challenging yourself both academically and socially. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Beth, and really we want to leave you with this. Try to understand the patterns of that the students will be experiencing at least the first semester, right? That it is normal that they will be missing home and that they'll be struggle with adjustments. And part of your role is to really encourage them to get involved so that that way of missing home will be alleviated and they will feel connected to the community. So rather than you pulling them in and over adjusting, push them towards us and towards their community so they can make connections. And it's going to be hard for you, but we really want you to do that because that's the only way you're going to get them involved and form their own community and not turn into crisis and of loneliness and missing home. So we really want you to think about that. We want you to think about the places where your child will face stressors during exam times and the way in which you can help by not adding to the pressure, but by trying to alleviate the pressure, right? So please think about ways in which the patterns of transition students will be facing. When you have questions, do call us, and we really look forward to working collaboratively with you.
All right. I want to thank my friends here in student affairs, including community standards, public safety, and of course, counseling and care and advocacy. We really appreciate the time that everyone took to share their little corner of the university, and really all the talents of these professionals you see weave together quite nicely to support and challenge our students so that they're growing in those important ways, because that's part of the education that they're seeking and that you're wanting for them here at UMass Dartmouth.